See that? got the Dolby Vision popping, I'm the colorist on top. Film density so heavy, it's like I'm never gonna drop. Grading scenes with precision, making colors vivid through the darkest corners. My art, you must admit it, no ordinary gangster. I'm a colorist on the streets, I mix the hues and shades, making visuals complete. From the darkest shadows to the brightest sunlit sky. Paint a masterpiece, that's what you can't deny. Ain't no match for my grading skills, I'm the champion. Like a visual illusion, I'll leave you in a trance, man. With magic on the screen, I create a sensation. The colors that I manifest, they cause a revelation. Step into my sweet kids where the magic happens. Balancing the tones, I control the captain's cabin. Highlights popping, mid-tones just right. Black so deep, they like the dead of night. I bend the gamma, curve the line. Craft every shot to look so fine. Rep 2020, wide gamut in play. Ace pipeline, set the visual array. Colors so real, they stretch beyond the norm. In Rep 709, I standardize the form. Log profiles give the latitude I need. Crafting colors like the visuals lead. Color wheel spinning, it's a visual feast. In the booth, I'm a beast. On the screen, a masterpiece. Contrast high, shadows deep. Got the look so sleek. Every frame, every scene, make the colors speak. Make the colors speak.
Hey! Hey! What's up, everybody? Welcome to Cult of Color. After 2 weeks, sorry I took last week off. I was dying of dysentery or some shit. Wow, that's fucking loud, isn't it? No, stop. Stop it. Alright, there we go. Dying of dysentery or some shit. I'm back. I'm not dying anymore. I'm still recovering from said ailment. It was not actually dysentery, but we won't go into my medical history. Tonight we got a couple of things lined up. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the GoPro Labs firmware, specifically for the Hero 12, but a lot of it will also apply to the 11 and the 10, possibly the 9, 8. I think it's 8 or later. I can't remember. Oh, it looks like the thing on the screen there. Hero 9, 8, 7, and the Max support some of the features, but basically the Hero 10 on support most, if not all, the features. So, my name's Joe, aka Nomad Aerial. I'll be your colors for the evening. Thank you very much for joining me. I see I've got a whopping one person giving us a watch. Make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. And I just want to give a special shout out to Donnie FPV for subscribing to my Patreon, which is a blistering $2 a month. You don't get anything other than good feelings for subscribing. I don't put anything behind a paywall. So, yeah, you know, one of those things. Hey, wait a minute. Somebody post something, check out this video when it's supposed to be in submissions. It's supposed to be in submissions. All right, we'll come back to that then. It wants to be difficult. Oh, there we go. You put it in the right one. Okay. Hexy, how you doing, buddy? I know you're not watching yet, but I see you on the Discord. Yeah, doing a deep dive in the GoPro Hero firmware, as well as what my personal settings are. Yours may vary, but want to kind of give you an idea of what all the little bits and bobs do and how you can use them to make your GoPro more better and get the most out of it. And then we're going to take a look at some GP log with my custom setup. Taking a quick grade at that, seeing what you get off the camera and how to deal with it. It can be a little bit difficult because it's going to look like ass coming straight off the camera. So, holy shit, I'm falling apart. Yeah. So, still put in submissions. Yeah, there you go. Welcome, buddy. Good. I was glad. I actually went looking for a video of yours, Hexy, and I hadn't seen one posted yet. So, I'm glad that you dropped that in there. Perhaps I didn't look hard enough. Anywho, before we get into all of this, let's have a look-see at some videos. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this horseshit down. Beep, 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 beep. Okay. And I think this one might have been posted already, but we're gonna watch it again anyway. This is Bartman Dude. Are we getting cheated here? I think we might be getting cheated. Lots of wires up in that joint. No, that's totally fine, dude. I totally get it. I have plenty that are like that. Oh, look at that. Look at that sky, man. I don't think we've seen this one before. This looks an awful lot like what I would do with it. So Bartman Dude's flying around with the Hero 11, if I recall. Of course, he's not watching right now. He must be flossing his cat's teeth or something. Yeah, I don't think we've seen this one before. Hood rips are fun. I'd love to rip around that hood. There's lots of like open yards and shit. I mean, compared to mine where there's nothing but ninja branches. Facebook? What is your obsession with Facebook? You got this obsession with Facebook, and Bartman Dude's got this obsession with SharePoint. Yeah, he is sloughing off, isn't he? What's up, Brett? Good to see you. Shadows look really good on this. Maybe I could see a lot of blooming around the trees versus the sky, and that is kind of a symptom of split grading, but also mid-tone contrast, mid-tone detail, cranking that one up. It looks good though. I really wouldn't complain about the blooming. Only like the most astute of eyes are going to see that blooming. It's something I fight with in every one of my grades. That's why I notice it. Private message is all I guess I can do via Discord. Yeah, you could. I don't really want to open up Facebook unless I absolutely have to during a broadcast. Gotta be all difficult and shit. The fancy looking yard you got there, Bart. Look at green accents on your house. Dude, I want to like come to a cookout at your house, man. Word. Alright. Got your private message. Speedy B35 is what he's flying right now. GoPro Hero 11. Zach Wild. Is that the music, or is his neighborhood seems like a little nice? Yeah, I mean it's suburbia, right? It looks a little bit nicer than mine in terms of like trees and bushes and shit. We've got a lot of taller, older trees. Most of the trees are around 100, 150 feet tall. And they're rot with like disease and shit, and they're all falling all over each other. So it's a fucking mess out there. The power company came through and just cut them all down. Like everybody who had a tree in the easement on their front yard, they lost their tree. So now it's a little bit more opened up, but still very much. But the wires situation in Bart's neighborhood is a little bit intense. I mean, I guess only because I don't know where all the wires are. Maybe if he saw my neighborhood and saw the wires in my neighborhood, he might think. Cool. Nice one, Bart. You know, whenever you want to get in here and watch some shit with us. So here's one that I dropped in here. I thought this was hilarious. I think you guys will find it hilarious too. This gentleman here does some comparison between stabilization and no stabilization using GyroFlow. And I think he could probably stand to learn a little bit more about how GyroFlow works. But, oh yeah, hey, thanks, Hexy. Side note, we're streaming 2160p, 60 frames per second, HDR. So if you're watching an HDR display, hopefully it looks good. Watch it on your phone. I wouldn't recommend watching it on your phone because I'm not doing any display scaling. So when we get into Resolve and the GoPro sites, the shit's going to be tiny. You got to crank up that. You got to crank up that shit. Yeah, that's right. He does live in the Wonder Years suburbs, doesn't he? That's pretty funny. Yeah, this guy does some comparison between using stabilization, no stabilization. He's using very light stabilization with GyroFlow. I think he needs to learn a little bit more about how it works, but he's on the right path. And this is why, like, a lot of people don't know that all of my videos are stabilized. I've had a lot of people go, "Wow, you're really smooth on the sticks," when I'm really fucking not. I'm precise when it counts, but I'm not smooth. I don't have slow rates. I have fast rates, believe it or not. I think my maximum rotation is 600 degrees per second. So full stick deflection, have that shit spinning around pretty quick. Because I like to do some tricks, but my center sticks is really like, I think it's 10 or something like that. On my bigger quads, and 135 degrees per second on my 5-inch, because it's a little bit more aggressive. Anyway, so, but the way this guy intros up the video, I saw this on my other YouTube account, watching on TV, and I was watching with my wife. I was like, what the fuck is this? What is this guy going to do? It turned out to be fucking hilarious. Just genius implementation. So here we go.
Yo, what's up, YouTube? Today we're out here. We're about to fly this drone. We're going to drone it up. We're going to do some drone stuff. You know, I got Big Dog FPV over here. We got Big Cat FPV over here. Got Big Walrus FPV over here. We got Big Boy Dog FPV. You know, we're out here just doing no stab FPV, you know, because no one on my crew is allowed to fly with stabilization. You know, if you have stabilization on your GoPro, that makes you a poser. You know, let's rip.
Watch the logos. It's genius. These guys have put all the logos all over their videos. Department of Health.
If you're gonna fly epic FPV freestyle and you're gonna stabilize your drone footage, can you even call yourself an actual FPV pilot? In all seriousness though, if you want to use GoPro stabilization or you want to stabilize your GoPro footage, it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit, really? You know, do whatever makes you feel good. But ultimately, for me,
yeah, if you guys don't know, this guy's called Grim Ripper.
Drones is to get the best possible footage.
This was a great video.
When I took my GoPro footage and ran it through GyroFlow, I realized I don't really need that much stabilization to begin with. I found that the GoPro footage without stabilization didn't really look that much different than it did with stabilization.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I did not see it coming at all, and I thought I wasn't paying attention to like the big dog and big cat and big walrus FPV shit. I wasn't paying that much attention to it. And it was my wife that noticed the odd logos. I was just like, oh, here we go. I thought it was just going to be a rip video. It turned out to be absolutely hilarious.
It wouldn't be a real
Taekwondo, what's up?
science experiment. This isn't a science experiment, but it wouldn't be a real science experiment unless I did multiple tests in multiple locations and did, you know, just, this video is going to be 40 hours long, and we're going to get down into every detail. Whoa, dude. Oh, shit. I almost got killed by a drone. It was my fault though, standing where I was standing. We're flying
I think that's
so
gonna be
close
my
to ourselves.
It's gonna be
though.
my
This
FPV
is
name
insane.
now.
I was like,
FPV.
standing right here, and the drone came like right here, and I was like, I just died, but you disarmed, so all I care about is getting the best quality footage I can possibly get with what I have, right? So, for instance, here's an example. So currently, right now, I am using a ND8 filter, and I'm running it at like 60
I know,
FPS,
Paul.
and then I just slow it down, and then I just cut it down to 30 FPS in a timeline.
Glad you made it.
Either way, that's not ideal because I'd rather shoot it at 30 FPS because you get more motion blur. Blah, blah,
Taekwondo
blah.
forever,
so I'm
right?
sacrificing a little bit just because I don't have another ND filter currently. But I'm doing the best I can with what I have to get the best possible footage, because for me personally, the drone is more about the camera footage, not the drone. There's a lot of people out here walking around. I don't love this. Is this propeller chipped? I don't give a f. My flight controller will solve everything.
Nah, you good, bro.
I'm flying a drone.
There's always a replay. Not everybody can make it all the time. I get it.
Let's power lift this tree in a big way. Send it around. Nope. Fix it with a flip.
See, it also has distortion correction on the stabilized version, which also makes a difference. I know we got into a big old fat argument about it.
I lost my drone in this
Hexy.
tree last year, and so I'm like afraid to not dash the throttle here. That's why the power loops are like 4 miles in the air. That tree right there. I tried climbing up it, but it didn't work. I feel like even if this wasn't stabilized, this feels like it'd be pretty good.
No, it makes a difference. You just want to stabilize just enough to get the little wobbles, shakes, and micro corrections out. See, he doesn't have quite enough on his high velocity. Good job.
So I got my TX16 back from somebody I let somebody borrow this that I thought was gonna get into drones, but they didn't get into drones. I haven't used full-size gimbals since I first started, so I want to see how it feels. I'm gonna sell this, by the way. If anyone wants this, they can buy it from me.
Looks like a fun little place to fly. Bando bleachers.
My goal isn't to get, you know, sick freestyle footage, and well, I like getting cool freestyle footage, but I'm not all about having an optimal, you know, smooth flight with no stabilization. That's not really my goal. You know, I don't really post freestyle flights or anything like that, and mainly anytime I do, the footage is strictly used as a supporting element to tell the overall story. Someone said once, I got a call
stabilize
who
is
said this,
better.
but
I mean,
someone said that people who fly, you know, FPV or
there are
drones,
some exceptions to that
camera
rule.
drones from a cinematic perspective, they're flying the camera.
There's some people who are good enough
flying the drone.
to not need stabilization, who have got the perfect rates dialed in for their own specific skills, and they're super practiced and sharp, and they don't need, like, they don't make those tiny little corrections that you see us making, right? But with a tiny bit of
creating movies, but I also enjoy FPV. So I'm more or less just using FPV as a catalyst to create my movies.
Period.
So when it comes to making content, I only use drone footage where I feel like it's necessary to tell the story. So I feel like if I was posting any drone footage that was a little bit shaky or not stabilized, that could be a bit jarring and off-putting to people who may not necessarily be into FPV. But if your goal is to showcase your freestyle flying abilities, then maybe you shouldn't use stabilization. Maybe you should post your footage as it is, and then hopefully that helps you improve your flying. Me personally, I don't care about any of that. You know, I just want my shit to look cool. And that's really all that matters to me.
Yeah. So, like I said, there are some exceptions to that rule, but in general, if you're a decent pilot, just a dash of stabilization is enough to take the jitteriness out of it and still give you that wide field of view, still give you that unstabilized look without all the breathing in and out bullshit. Might help if I boop 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 boop. Okie dokie. What we got next? Oh, so I actually saw this one at the last minute. I think I saw a different part of this. I can't remember where, but I was blown away. These guys can fucking fly. Blew me away. Righteous FPV dropping one in the submissions. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping in. They're basically treating this little office park like a race course. Holy shit. I mean, hot pursuit, you know what I'm saying? And this is another one of those lightly stabilized. I can tell this has been stabilized because I can see the motion blur jitters. There's an ND filter on the camera as well. And despite the aggressive flying, it still looks quite good. It looks like 30 frames per second. Shit, I'm gonna need Dramamine. Holy fuck. Yeah, Brett, music's good. Good music. I'm gonna make myself sick. I'm gonna yarf before the end of this video. Holy shit. These guys are fucking ripping. Say they look like they got maybe a 30-degree tilt on their cameras. They're fucking screaming. Wow, look at that. Yeah, they are definitely cooking. Video looks straight off the GoPro. Overexposed as fuck. I mean, static exposure, which is good. I just think it's a slightly bit overexposed. Maybe they got started early in the day and never changed their exposure settings as it became midday. God damn. God damn. Slow down, man. That's ridiculous. Such long cuts with without losing them, without hitting anything, without bumping anything. Obviously, there's like a route they both know intimately well. Like I said, they're treating it like a race course. I don't think they're just whipping around, you know, hoping for the best. I've seen the guy that's filming, I've seen him anticipate the next move. He's like, especially through trees and stuff. Yeah, I'm sure both these sets of lipos exploded. This might be multiple flights, though. All kind of mashed together. Drop that link for you. It's in the stream submissions channel as well. Everything that I play goes in there. I don't just like pick something off the web and just pick something off the web and just play it. So you guys can't get to it. So yeah, Squid FPV, fucking awesome. I'm gonna drop some Hexy awesomeness here. Let me just, oh, it looks like I already gave him. Oh, yeah, okay, already commented too. Special Hexy Rallycross. Let's go. Everything's in French. Text tracking, okay. Looks like you might have hand animated that one. I didn't know they needed high volt batteries. I mean, the cuts weren't that long. I know that it looks like there wasn't that many cuts, but there was. It's just you're so engrossed by the action you don't notice the cuts. We're just warming up, man. You haven't missed anything. After the videos, we'll get into some GoPro shit. Fucking love this song. It is a great driving song for me. Looks like somebody's been practicing getting detail out of the sky. Looks good, Hexy. I'd love to come chase these cars with the X8, man. I could keep up with them. Gotta love the... oh, nice. That's a great speed ramp, dude. You even added some sound effect there. See, ironically, Hexy, what might actually help you go faster when you're chasing these guys is adding some weight to your quad. It'll kill your battery a little bit more, but if you add some more weight, you'll get a higher cruising speed, and you don't brake so easily. You'll coast a little bit easier. That's why my 5-inch is like 850, 900, not kilos, Jesus Christ, grams. That's right, they were telling you not to get close to the cars, weren't they? Raid Squad! What up, dog? Glad you can make it. Looks like on some of the straight areas I might be hitting like 120, 130. Maybe. I don't know how well tuned that Scooby is, so. I've had 2 WX STIs in my day, tuned them both. So I know those cars rather well. Word. Cool. Ooh, fancy. So one of the things you can do, if you can fly in such a way that if you were to disarm, you would go away from the car and you wouldn't pass the path of the car. If you can consistently do that, they'll probably let you get closer. If you explain to them what your methodology is, that you're always, you're never into the path of the car. Just my 2 cents. That was killer, though. I dig it, man. I gotta give you a thumbs up. Tell ya. Hi. All right, let's see here. We got some Righteous FPV, ultra-wide wetlands, anamorphic cinematic FPV flight. Okay, Righteous. Anamorphic. Did you use an anamorphic adapter on your GoPro? I'm very curious now. Or did you just crop it? Don't let me hanging, bro. Hey, Grim Ripper, what's up, dude? Yeah, man, the video was sick. It had me rolling, man. Thanks for coming in. I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, oh man, here goes another one of these no stab assholes. And then my wife picked up on all the logos, and I was like, oh shit, I totally missed the point. GoPro Hero bones with anamorphic lens. Okay. That's pretty fucking cool. There's not a lot of anamorphic distortion on that lens, which is actually a good thing for drone work, because as soon as you turn sideways, like if I put an anamorphic lens on my cinema camera and turn sideways, the distortion would be ugly as hell. Which is why you don't typically see true anamorphic on drones. Yeah, Grim. I thought your concept of using just a little kiss of stabilization makes all the difference, and that's really all you need, right? We're trying to get away from that real steady, ultra smooth and like rushing in and out, zooming kind of feeling, and Gyroflow helps us do that when you tune it. If you just pop it in there with defaults, then it's going to kind of pretty much look the same way. Righteous, that was really cool, dude. I enjoyed that. I have never seen an anamorphic lens on a drone before. Anamorphic. Now I need you to do it at night so we can see if there's any good lens flares. Probably not, though, right? Because I don't think the anamorphic adapter for the GoPro has a bunch of internal lenses. We got another one from Righteous. Let's give it a whirl. Video when I put it on CapCut. That's odd. If your gyro data is lagging the video, you might have an issue with your GoPro. GoPro, you don't have any control over it, Grim, and that's one of the reasons why I don't teach people to turn on hypersmooth, because you don't have any control over it. You can literally, like, you know, when you get into more advanced gyroflow things, you can animate different parts of the video. You get a more stabilization in some places and less stabilization in others, and you can tween between those keyframes. We're going to be doing a little bit of gyroflow discussion here in a little bit after we go through the GoPro Labs firmware. Because when we start grading the GP log from the Hero 12, I'm gonna run through my gyroflow process real quick. I did a deep dive like a couple months ago on gyroflow. I've done a number of deep dives. There's also a video somewhere in my channel for an old workflow that's not really applicable anymore because the DaVinci Resolve plugin for gyroflow works very well. CapCut is weird. I think CapCut is fantastic on mobile. On the desktop, it's clunky. It also can't detect my stupid GPU. It tells me my GPU can't run CapCut and I have to force skip it every time I open it. Walrus FPV. Man, that shit was funny. Is it the audio that's lagging behind? Or is the video still shaky? What's going on? I wish enter just sent the damn comment. Oh, let's see. I think we got another hidden one from Hexy. Let me grab that link real quick. So my guy says this is a draft, so don't copy anything. I'd be curious to see that, man. It sounds like a problem with CapCut. Ducharme? Wash me? Oh, no, that's the guy's last name. Okay, sorry. The linguist in me freaked out. Yeah, it's cut and graded different. You see your blacks are a bit more crushed. It's got a lot more cuts in it too. I can dig it. That tune though. You guys know how I like the music nasty. Big Walrus FPV. Oh, that's funny, Grim. Well, Grim, since you're here, let me introduce myself. My name's Joe, aka Nomad Aerial. I'm a cinematic FPV pilot. Also do a little bit of GPS drone stuff. My claim to fame, I'm a professional colorist, and I was before I ever got into drones. So that's kind of what I'm bringing to the table. This live stream is all about color grading, and it does have a very much of a drone focus. We work with action cams a lot. But I teach, whatever's curious. We got a guy in the group that just got a Hero 12, so we're going to go ahead and roll back through on some of the basics of the Hero 12, the GoPro Labs, and then some gyroflow and some crew grading tutorial in DaVinci Resolve. So always welcome to hang out, and the more the merrier. I do have a Patreon, but don't feel obligated. There's nothing behind a paywall. It's just in case you want to buy me coffee or whatever like that. That's fine. I don't do ads, sponsors, nothing. It's just me. Oh, not LUTs, dude. Not LUTs. Do you fly your FX3? That thing it's a neat little bit of kit, dude. I'm not a big enthusiast of Sony cameras, but I saw the FX3 and I'm like, that is a tiny little camera and it looks really good. So it would be one of my first choices to put on a drone if I didn't already have Blackmagic cameras. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I did notice your log footage in that video. Very good. The shallow depth of field. Sony's has amazing focus. I mean, just amazing focus. The autofocus is insane. So you can have like a wide open lens like that and know that your face isn't going to be blurry bullshit. So, nice. LUTs in general, just the technology itself. I'm all about signal integrity. So LUTs are destructive. They throw away they tend to discard data, and you can discard a lot of color information, a lot of exposure information. I like to try to maintain that all the way until I get to the final delivery. So I don't teach using LUTs because I'm a DaVinci Resolve shop, because I'm a Blackmagic fanboy. I teach power grades, DCTLs, things that aren't destructive to the data. And, there are, I'm sure you know this well by now, Grim. The quality of LUTs varies wildly. You got to be careful about where you're getting your LUTs from. They can be absolute garbage. And they can be good. For instance, GoPro's LUTs for the Hero 12, absolute trash. Don't use them. The D-Log LUTs, absolute trash. Okay, I think that is it for the videos. Yep, that's it. Okay, cool. Cutting off. No more. No mas. We got to move on. It's been almost an hour, and we gotta get moving on. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the GoPro Hero 12. My Hero 12 is stuck on a drone someplace. Otherwise, I'd show it to you. It's just, for the most part, incremental upgrade from the Hero 11. So if you have the 11 or the 10, which are the 11's kind of a slightly bigger jump over the 10. 10 is kind of in the same wheelhouse, though. 10, 11, and 12, this kind of applies to you. So we're going to talk about today is GoPro Labs, which is an alternative firmware provided by GoPro that has all the same built-in features as the normal production firmware, and none of that is like beta or anything, but it has a bunch of extra features that you can tweak that gives you a whole lot more control over the GoPro, a whole lot more control over what the camera does during recording and things of that nature. You can change a lot of things you don't have access to in the production firmware, but I do want to make it a point to say that it's not beta firmware. It's not unstable. It's based on the latest stable production firmware. So like the latest production firmware for the Hero 12 is going to be 2.20.70, and it's going to be the same version on Labs. It's just going to have the extra stuff turned on. I'll get you some footage, stabilize it, and send it to you next time I fly with. Okay. Also, send me the unstabilized footage too. And play with it. Engineered to mimic the Arri cameras. Yeah. I think everything is trying to go for that Arri look. It's really tough to emulate the Arri look. I did it with a Blackmagic camera. I got okay-ish results. Having colored a lot of Arri cameras, I know what they look like. I know how they respond. So it's tough to get that look. That's why they are who they are and why their shit costs $1 bajillion. Yeah, Hero Labs, or GoPro Labs. So it's a free download. You can come to gopro.github.io/labs. I will drop that in the chat here. Beep, beep, beep. github.io/labs. That'll take you to where you can get the firmware. When you install this firmware, basically what you do is you're going to download a zip file when you download whatever for your specific camera. And yes, there is a firmware difference between the Black Mini and the 11 Black, because obviously the 11 Black doesn't have certain hardware. Although you can't really brick your device because there's no, you're not copying the firmware straight over on USB. So you're going to take the file, download it, blah blah blah. It's going to drop a zip file. You can just open it up. So I would take this update folder right here and just copy it to the root of my SD card. So right next to the DCIM and the other one that's in there. Turn a little bit of tunes on here. So right next to the DCIM folder, you put that update folder in there, and then put your SD card back in your camera and just turn your camera on. You want to make sure you've got a full battery to do it. It can take a little while. It'll automatically start the update, and then when it's done, it'll remove that update folder so your SD card doesn't have any garbage on it. And then once you've updated and you turn your camera back on or it restarts, you'll see the normal GoPro UI come up, and then you'll see more low-level UI. It'll come up and say GoPro Labs Firmware something something something. I can't remember. And it'll also show a number of options that you have turned on if you've turned any on already. Well, you wouldn't have at this point. So the first time you boot, you won't see any options. Let's talk about those options. So the way GoPro Labs works is it uses QR codes to change settings in the camera. And so you have to use one of these QR code creators in order to generate a QR code that is going to work for your camera. The QR code is a little bit stupid, because obviously the GoPro has a fisheye lens, and QR codes don't like being a fisheye. If you can change your GoPro over to the linear lens, then it works pretty good. And then I think in previous versions of the Hero 12 Labs, it was a bit dicey. Like if you had some options in there that weren't necessarily compatible, it just wouldn't work. It would never work, no matter how good it was. But yeah. Anyway, it's a bit fiddly to get the QR code to work. Cool thing is you can save that as an image. And also there is this same QR code creator exists as an app for iPhone and Android. So you can create these on the go, put your phone out in front of your camera, change the settings, and you're good to go. There's a number of options to make these settings permanent, meaning they they survive power changes and won't change again until you manually change them, or make it so they only apply for that particular power on. So let's take a quick look here. I'm actually going to zoom this up so we can all see a little bit better. So a lot of these options, you can tell, like there's Hero 12 modes, presets for 10 and 11. And in camera mode, these are all mutually exclusive. So like depends on what I hit. And you can see like Star Trails is a Hero 11 thing and so on and so forth. For me, I always shoot in log, so we're just going to change it over to log, which is automatically going to enable 10-bit because I don't think you can do log in 8-bit. Because most people want to like go to cinematic, but then you're just using a standard mode at that point. So want to make sure you're using the Hero 12 video mode. We scroll down. Best is best. 5K 8x7, so you get the most pixels vertically and the most pixels horizontal. FPS video, that is entirely up to you. I choose 24 because I'm a pretentious colorist. You don't have to do as I do. You're not wrong if you choose 30, 50, 60, 100. I don't care. We're just kind of setting the baseline up here. So I use 24. You don't have to. Lens has to be wide. Cannot use super view. Cannot use hyper view. Has to be wide. If you don't use wide, you won't get any gyro data. Actually, no, you will get gyro data. It's going to suck trying to de-squeeze it because it's a non-linear distortion. Wide is no distortion, full sensor. So Hyperview uses distortion to mash more of it into the middle. And that's where, like, you've seen some people's flight videos are flying around when they turn the horizon makes this S-curve, right? That's what Hyperview does. And Superview, same thing. I guess only enable max lens mod if you're using it. I don't know anybody who's been using it, so keep the zoom to 0. Probably turn Hypersmooth off. Now, Hypersmooth does have to be off in order to get... No! I stand corrected. I keep thinking of the O3 air unit. You still get gyro data when you have Hypersmooth on, and you can actually perform additional stabilization and gyro flow with Hypersmooth turned on. Okay, Bart. Yeah, no worries, dude. No worries at all. Hindsight, that's your preference. I don't know anybody who uses hindsight, so I would probably just turn that off. Duration, I would just turn that off. That would be automatically stopping your recording after a certain amount of time. Wind reduction, in my experimentation, auto is most bestest. Depending upon the kind of case or the kind of mounting you have for your GoPro and the drone. If you turn it off, it'll sound really good until you take off, and then it'll just be this super loud, whiny crap. And turning it on auto will make it switch between the two automatically. Don't worry about custom name presets or spot metering. ProTune controls. So we're going to go with flat for our ProTune color. And we're going to set our color depth to 10. Now this should already be set, but we're going to set it anyway, just for tits and pickles. Because we chose the HDR video mode. Or not HDR, we chose the log video mode. So you can just leave those as not set if you want. Bitrate, we're going high. White balance, this is key. We're going to go native. So I want to try to explain this in as simplest term as I can. When we shift the white balance in camera, we're causing the camera to be more sensitive to one end of the spectrum than the other, which shifts the overall color blue or red, right? Cool or warm. So we lose exposure information in the complementary color. So if we're shifting it warm, we lose exposure information in the blues. And we'll get a lot more banding on our sky, for instance. If we shift it cool, we lose exposure information in our reds. So, you know, your darker red shadows will have a lot of banding and noise in them. Native keeps the... which happens to be very warm in appearance, but it keeps the sensor even. You get even exposure, even dynamic range for all the colors, and that's important to getting the most out of the camera. Since we're using GP log, it is automatically going to want to do 100 to 400, and I know a lot of people go, oh, auto exposure, why would we want to do that? there's another option that we're going to use that's going to make this a little bit less noticeable. Okay. If you're of the motion blur persuasion, 180 degree for the lock shutter. If you don't already know, shutter angle is a derived hyper smooth or Rocksteady. Chat like sucks. Oh, Rocksteady is is the DJI one, right? So I mean, on the O3 Air unit, you have to have Rocksteady turned off. You have to use the wide, not the super wide camera, in order to even get the gyro data embedded in the file. That's where I keep thinking that shit. So anyway, yeah, ISO min max. You can play around with this. Depends on what you're seeing. If you're flying outside, 100, 400 is going to be enough. 100 to 800 can definitely help you protect your highlights and be able to see into some deeper shadows, but it's going to cause a little bit more noise. Yeah, shutter speed. So shutter angle is derived value based on frame rate. So 180 degrees is always 180 degrees, but what is the shutter speed? Well, it depends on the frame rate, right? If it's 24 frames per second, if 360 degrees is the entire duration of one frame, so if it's 24 frames per second, the duration of one frame is 1/24th of a second. That's 360 degrees. 180 degrees, we want to leave the shutter open for half of the duration of one frame. And this is kind of that sweet spot for cinematic motion blur, because it's crisp and clear enough to maintain all the detail and have some separation between the frames, but also smooth and blurry enough to trigger that persistence of vision and make it seem very fluid. Also, those rally vids were Sunday. FPV only. We had DSLRs, GoPros, Mavic 3s, Mavic Air rolling, so tons of angles. Just organized. 3 terabytes of footage is the worst. Yeah, I still don't feel bad for you. I mean, is it the size or is it the file count? You need some time code in your life, dude. That's correct. No gyro data if you have Rocksteady turned on. So yes, you have some options. If you want a super duper fast shutter, you know, you can crank it down to something ridiculous, which is going to give you very crisp frames. At 24 frames per second, it would look juddery, and it would also be very difficult to expose, probably even at ISO 400, because the shutter is open for such a short amount of time. So in this way, we're locking the shutter so that the disposition of each frame doesn't change, but we're still going to use the ISO to kind of correct exposure. We want to definitely specify sharpness as low, raw audio off, and I don't think there's anything we need to do in here. Oh yeah, this is helpful for drone pilots, so let's talk about some of this. Hero 12 doesn't have a GPS, so make sure that's not set. Voice control, whatever your preference is, just leave it as not set if you don't give a shit. Quick capture, same. You want that one turned on. That's a little bit easier. So quick capture, if you don't know, what I like to do is I have this turned on my GoPro. So on my 5-inch, I'll have my Hero 12 in there, and I'll plug in my battery. And all you got to do with the GoPro off is just hit the record button. The GoPro turns on and starts recording. Cool, awesome. And it's always going to come up in the same mode. And well, once you set the default mode, it's going to come up with the same mode. So with the same setting, so you don't have to fuck with it. And then when I'm done, I just hit the record button again to stop it, and it turns off. So I don't have to worry about powering on, make sure it's on the right mode, blah, 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 right? Okay, so we want to make sure video is the last default mode. Quick capture's turned on. Beep volume, that's up to you. Display brightness, that's up to you. LEDs, up to you. Orientation lock. Here's the thing for drone pilots. If you are the type of person who likes to vlog with your drone, you hit record. If you're not holding it right, you're going to end up with a portrait video. So I like to lock it with landscape, the top being the top of the GoPro. You can do it inverted as well. I like to lock it. Camera auto off, that's up to you. Either leave it not set or set it whatever you want. Same thing with screen auto off. Wi-Fi, same idea. If you use... if you have GoPro Plus and you use the backup via Wi-Fi, you probably want to leave that on, otherwise it's not going to work. Voice language, I've heard don't mess with the voice, it sucks ass. And don't worry about setting the date and time. Doesn't matter. Delayed actions don't matter. Okay, so we've gone through those. Now we got to get to the real meat and potatoes, the super special, awesome commands here that we actually have to type in codes for. So here we go, and I will drop this into the chat. This is all the detailed extensions of what you can put in there. And I have some basics. So wide being it's a non-color spaced gamut. So basically it's going to let the sensor saturate to colors that are outside of Rec 709, outside of Rec, well, not outside of Rec 2020, but closer to Rec 2020. It's outside of Rec 709. Really high saturation things will not saturate to white. They will instead remain their appropriate color. So you can get a little bit more color detail by turning this on. So first thing I want to do, and this is, here's the dealio here. Okay, so !M, that is going to make the option I'm about to type permanent. So immediately after I put in the 4-letter code, and then I put =1. Okay, so now I've got one of those in there. And it's going to be permanent, which means when I turn the camera off, turn it back on, it's still going to be like that until I turn it off. Okay, and there's a whole ton of other shit that we don't need to mess with. You can mess with some of them. So here's an interesting thing. Gyro compensated exposure. The Hero 11 and 12, when they detect a lot of movement, when they're fully auto, right? When they detect a lot of movement, what they're going to do is crank up the ISO and speed up the shutter speed so there's no blur during that fast, rapid movement. And that's how they kind of they keep the exposure where it needs to be, but they make sure that there's no blur. So when the gyro detects fast movement, it's going to shift. It's going to prioritize shutter speed over ISO, and it's going to crank the ISO, crank the shutter speed to make sure there's no blur. It's an interesting little thing. Wouldn't worry about messing with that. So the Hero 12 and the 11 default to 12 gigabyte chapters, and I think the 10 defaults to 4 gigabyte chapters. If you're using a larger card and it's been stable, you can go ahead and crank this up to whatever you want. Basically, this is going to prevent the GoPro from slicing up your files into 4 gigabyte chunks or 12 gigabyte chunks, depending, right? So if you set it to 64 BT equals 32,000, you're going to get a 32 gigabyte file before it slices, or 64,000, right? I haven't had any problems with it, but for me, I've left it at 12 gigabytes because most of my flights don't go beyond that. So the date and time in the camera, that doesn't matter. If you're going to do time code, it's going to be embedded in the audio channel. So it's actually going to be an additional thing that you connect to the GoPro. Because basically you're going to use a centralized time code system that all has synchronized basically attachments for cameras that pump time code into the audio channel. And all it's going to do is you're going to start at the beginning of the day, and it's just going to keep blipping its little digital thing into the audio channel that represents the time code all day long, whether you're recording or not. Anytime you record, the time code's getting in there. Everybody's got the same exact time code. They're perfectly synchronized. And then at the end of the day, you just dump all your files into the utility and they all get lined up by time code. Proxy. The Hero 12 does a proxy version. The 11 does a proxy version. I think the 10 does a proxy version as well. This is when when you're using the app and you want to play back something that's on the camera, but you don't want to transfer the 5 or 10 gig file or whatever. It encodes a proxy at the same time that's easier to stream. What you can do in here is you can choose the type of proxies that it's going to create. So if you're going to use proxies, you could set this to 1 for Adobe Premiere Pro. 2 for thumbs, 3 moves the proxies into both folders, 4 uses DaVinci Resolve style proxies. So your mileage may vary. I don't use proxies because I want the camera to only focus on its one encoding job and want the card to only have to deal with one file stream as best as I can. Unfortunately, you can't turn this off on the Hero 12. On the 10 and the 11 you can. For whatever reason you can't on the 12, but it has not. It seems to have not affected performance because the Hero 12 has a faster processor. Alright, so there's a whole bunch of other bullshit here. We can just kind of cruise past. Log base. This is for creating a custom log profile. You want to be careful with this one. If I were you on the 12, the 12 already has a really good log profile, so don't mess with it on the Hero 12. If you want to create a custom log profile, MLogB 400 is a good starting place. It's a little push in dynamic range. It's not anything you're going to need a LUT for or anything crazy like that. It's basically just boosting the shadows. Noise reduction, we want to leave that on. I have played with it, played with turning that down and turning that off. Turning it off is a bad idea. Pretty much unrecoverable footage. Yes, you do need an external unit for this type of type code. Yeah, definitely a pain in the ass with the 4 gig files. It's actually pretty easy to join those, though, with FFmpeg, or GyroFlow will automatically join them as well. So you don't have to worry so much about that. But it used to be a real pain in the dick. If you had split files, GyroFlow would be happy to join them, but the gyro data wouldn't line up. You'd have this big jerk where the cut was. But they fixed that since. So yeah, don't mess with the noise reduction. All of this we can move along. If you're going to power your drone off of the LiPo and fly it without the built-in battery, then you'll want to use Trust USB power. This is in case like there's if you have a buck converter that's you're plugging into the balance leads on your LiPo. Hey, what's up, Marcel? Yeah, man, I haven't been doing too hot lately, so I'm kind of coming out of the word work tonight. I'm not 100%, but I'm getting there. I missed you guys too. It's been a while. Appreciate you stopping in, man. So yeah, trusted USB power. It's a Type-C connection, right? So it's a negotiated connection. You can't just take 5 volts and put it on there. Well, you can. You can use an unnegotiated connection, but it supports USB power delivery. Supports, I think, maybe quick charge, like the Qualcomm quick charge. But if you want to make sure that the GoPro doesn't nope out on the USB, you add this one to USB equals 1, and probably like use a -M so it's permanent. So like we could do that. No, Hexy, we're talking pro level shit, man. I mean, you've got so many cameras going, like, you're ready to do this for realsies. Cool, Marcel. I'll make it a point to be there, dude. I do like the community hangouts. So now we're about to put our second value in here. There's no comma, there's no space. So right immediately after the 1, I'm going to do !M for permanent, TUSB equals 1. It's super important that there's no spaces at all anywhere. There's no commas, there's no semicolons. It's just one block after another right next to each other. So that's going to permanently enable the GoPro to trust USB power if it's an unnegotiated power delivery. So now we have some specific things to Hero 12, 11, and 10. Some advanced features. 24 hertz. So as it says here, the film standard is 24.0 frames per second. Exactly. out of the box, when you put your GoPro to 24 frames per second, that's 23.976, the NTSC broadcast frame rate. The reason why there are frame rates like this is because way back in the day, when they first added stereo audio, they needed to drop the frame rate ever so slightly to fit the audio into the frame of the transmission. It was a radio bandwidth issue, not a hardware issue. It was a radio bandwidth issue. They had a limited amount of RF bandwidth that they could transmit on, and they needed to slow that frame rate ever so slightly to fit the audio in there. So we don't give a shit. We want to do cinema stuff. So we're going to use the 24. If you're going to use 24 frames per second, this has no effect on 30, 60, 120, 240. None whatsoever. This is only for 24 frames per second. But again, like I said before, I'm a pretentious colorist and a film enthusiast, so permanently 2 for HZ equals 1. Okay, so now I got my 24 hertz in there. Yeah, Hexy, you should go on there, dude. It's a lot of fun. And then moving forward here, we don't care about this. We don't care about this. Bitrate. This is the fun one. So the bitrate can go up to 200 megabit per second. The limit is not the speed of your card in most cases, at least not with the Hero 12. The limit is going to be the speed of the FPGA encoder that's in the GoPro. So it's going to be fine with 24 frames per second, but with 60 or 60 frames per second up, it might struggle a little bit. So like it says here, a camera that is reliable doing 180 megabit per second at 24 frames per second will likely need to drop to 150 megabit per second for 120 frames per second. So yeah, it comes down to processing speed. Most GP2 cameras, which I believe is the Hero 11 and 12, can do 150 megabit per second for all video modes, but your testing is still required. Use it at your own risk. If you set it to high, your shit's gonna freeze. So you have to experiment with it a little bit. I believe I have mine set to 160, maybe higher. I can't remember. For the sake of shits and pickles, we'll go ahead and we'll just do permanent BITR for bitrate equal 180, because I'm only ever going to shoot 24 frames per second. So let's fucking go. We'll just hope it doesn't crash, right? And it's only for HEVC. So whatever reason you have it on low and you're using H.264, it's gonna die. So damp. You remember when we set the automatic ISO? We wanted some automatic exposure, but here's how we hide that automatic exposure. Okay, so damp is the amount of time in seconds that the auto exposure will take shifting from one exposure level to another. So if you're flying your drone around, you go into a parking garage from outside, it's going to take a second for the GoPro to adjust exposure for the inside of that parking garage. Now, that's obvious, right? It's very obvious to anybody who's watching that there's auto exposure on there. We want our shit to look like there's not. We want it to look like the exposure is completely locked down and we're just really good at nailing exposure. So we want to set damp to something like 10 to 30 seconds. I think I've got mine set to 15 or 20. So it looks completely static. Now, the downside of that is if you go rapidly from someplace dark that you spend a lot of time in to something that's super bright, you're going to have an overexposure situation. But there's so much dynamic range in the log profile, chances are you're not necessarily going to run into that. So I will hit !M damp equal 1. Let's call it 15. Nope, 15. So 15 seconds it's going to take. Now that being said, there is also a sensor gain shift that happens, and you'll still see that. There's no control over that. So the sensor will respond differently, and it responds quickly. I'm not sure what it is, but there's like a tiny exposure shift that's fast that I can't get rid of. So, but this will make it look like you have your shit locked down. You can disable audio if you want. You can disable the LRV, the proxies. Now, again, I said disabling proxy is not supported on the 12, so we're not going to worry about that. We're going to keep rolling down here. Okay, so tone mapping. So it says do not use these with flat. It can be weird results. And I last time I went over this on the show, I got told by somebody in the comments that tone mapping has nothing to do with anything if you're using flat color. Yes and no. The best results I've had is tone equals 2 using global tone mapping and local tone mapping. This gets you a lot of mid-tone contrast and a lot of compressed exposure range. Have I done empirical tests with the flat color profile of using the camera's default or using global and local tone mapping? No. Do you like the way my footage looks? Probably. So we're going to edit anyway. So exclamation M, tone equals 2 to use GTM and LTM, global tone mapping and local tone mapping. Aren't we having fun, guys? All right, now we're going to keep cruising down here. Whoa, get all past all this other crap. Okay, I think we're almost at overlay commands. You can change the HDMI and the audio gain. Okay, so fun times. We've gone through all those options. This little, I can do this right here in case you guys just want that. There you go. And I can also copy a link to, I think maybe, yes, Hero, the clipboard. If you want to see all my settings and copy my settings, you can use that link right there. And that is how I set up my Hero 12. Now, let's talk about what does that get you at the end of the day. Let's have a see look here. So I'm just going to pop this in here. I need to change one thing. I always forget image scaling. Scale entire image to fit. Okay. So that's a big one, right? Yep. So here's an 8x7 image. I don't think you guys can hear it because the way my audio setup is. I was fucking around with it. There we go. So that's what it looks like straight off the drone, right? It's fisheye. It's almost square, but it is quite high res. So, and I'm going to bring in the other files from this flight as well. So one of the things that I did is I have a file here specific. When I first went out there, before I plugged in a battery, I put my drone in the direction I was going to take off in and showed my color chart there. Fancy dancy, happy Nancy. Okay, and I just kind of keep this clip off to the side. I use it to pull my white balance before I create a power grade that contains my pulled white balance, so everything looks good after that. But before we start messing with these too much, obviously we want to do a 16:9, and this isn't 16:9. This is 8:7, and it's shaky, so we need to do something with it. So we're gonna go into GyroFlow. So I will keep stuffing it. Where the hell did it go? So I'm going to open up GyroFlow. Ta-da! And I'm not going to worry about trying to stabilize that first file. We don't need it to be stable or like distortion correction. We're just going to work on 48 and 49 here. So I'll take 48 and I'll drop it on here. And I need to load a lens profile. So I do Hero, and they're odd situation there. Somebody created that. Just for the Hero 12, use the Hero 11 Black 8x7 wide preset. It's the same exact sensor, same exact lens. So you'll get there, and you could tell dimensions. The vertical lines is where all the detail is really. Having it square means we've got a lot of pixels to work with. they do get stretched out in the corners. And I used to say, hey, we need to export this as 8K. You know, go build a space shuttle or something while it's encoding, because it's going to take you forever. Well, now we're going to use the GyroFlow plugin for DaVinci Resolve. And let me show you guys where to get that real quick. So we're going to gyroflow.xyz and scroll us down. And it's not where it should be. I think we go to GitHub. Is it on GitHub? Yes, OpenFX plugin. So there is also, I think, a plugin for Final Cut Pro, which allows you to import a GyroFlow project without transcoding. So Hexy, that might be for you. Final Cut Pro has a nice, fun little plugin there. I have no idea how it works. I don't have a Mac that has Final Cut. Please don't ask. But you can download and install the OpenFX plugin, and you are going to install that where your plugins go. So it tells you right here on Windows, this is where your OpenFX plugins will go. That you just take the folder that's called gyroflow.ofx.bundle. So it's a folder, and you just copy that out of the zip file into that C program files, common files, OFX plugins folder, and then restart Resolve if you haven't done so already. So what I'm going to do here is, like normally if I was going to encode, I would chop this off. This is like nothing happening here, but I don't have to do that. So let me mute that. Let me take a look at my settings. So I usually use the default, and my general smoothness is 150 millisecond time window, and then default, I don't know why that's set. Do I do that? Yeah, 100 milliseconds. So the key thing, and I think Grim, if you're still watching, this is what I think you might have missed when you're trying to like just do a little chef's kiss of stabilization. If you set this too low, this max smoothness at high velocity, if you set it too low, all the jerks are going to come out. We want this just high enough to get rid of any wobble, any vibrations, and any kind of jerking around with the sticks. Micro movements, right? We don't want to set it high, because if we're going to do like spang or freestyle or something like that, we have a snap movement. We don't want that stabilized. We want that immediate jerk, you know, especially juicy style, S-spang or S-bang or whatever the fuck y'all call it. I don't know. I'm not into that shit. But you can get that hard turn while having everything else in between that be stable, right? And that hard turn won't cause it to zoom in extra. It won't be applied. It won't be taken into account, and it'll be nice and crisp. But everything else will be smooth, so you don't have to compromise the ability of having stabilization and the ability of having crisp movements when you need them. And that's how you tune it, is the max smoothness and high velocity. So by default for me, in my flying style, 100 milliseconds work. I know Kit FPV, she does 3D. She does 0.9. Actually, she does 0.9 on the overall smoothness, but when I worked on her footage, I used 0.9 in the max smoothness and high velocity. So basically, it's what is a smoothing window if the gyro data is high velocity. So all these spikes right here, these are high velocity. Okay. So basically, it's like how much smoothness we're going to do when we're spinning around or something like that. We don't want a lot. And then my 150 millisecond window is just your basic. And then the zooming speed, damn it, that keeps changing. We want to change the zooming method to envelope follower. Zooming speed is 1 second, give or take, for 150 millisecond window. That's pretty good. If you do a larger window, you're going to want to push that out more. So I used to have a formula for it, but 1 second seems to be what I keep coming back to. Just kind of play around with it. You want it to be subtle, right? So you can see it at the beginning when I'm about to take off, kind of that swelling that happens as GyroFlow gets prepared. You see that movement there? It's starting to move the focus lens, and now it's like you don't really see it. And with envelope follower, when you're coming up towards a turn or towards an event, you're not going to get that rushing zoom that you get with real steady. That's a Gaussian blur. So the envelope follower is very different in how it addresses the zoom and the crop in. You can see, but like my crisp movements are still crisp. It's like if I go back to where the gyro data is. Just sort of taking the edges off a little bit. Is YouTube really bitching about my bitrate? Fuck off. I'm not dropping frames, am I? That would suck. Anyway, also this is what it looks like out of the can. So this is just straight off the GoPro with all those settings that I just showed you in the beginning part. Kind of give you an idea. Like I said, you can tune this to your preference. The biggest tuning thing you're going to get though is the max smoothness at high velocity. 100 to 150 milliseconds is going to be good enough for your main window. If you want to make it look super weird and make people nauseous, you can change the smoothing method to plain 3D. I wouldn't recommend it for drone footage. It's very strange. Let's see. So, yeah. Dynamic zooming and zoom speed a second. Envelope follower. And lens correction strength 100%. God damn it. Now, rolling shutter correction. So when you use the DJI O3, its camera profile already has a sensor readout time built into it, and it automatically enables rolling shutter correction. The GoPro sensor is so fast it's not even worth bothering to try and correct for rolling shutter. And what rolling shutter is, if you don't know, most sensors in cameras, most CMOS sensors scan one line at a time, usually from the bottom up or the top down, sometimes side to side. But it takes time to get from the bottom line of the sensor to the very top line of the sensor, usually measured in milliseconds, right? It's going to rip across the sensor. But if you're turning really fast as you rip across the sensor, everything's going to start to lean. And if you have a lateral vibration, everything's going to wobble. So the Insta360 Ace Pro is terrible at that. It has a very slow sensor readout. I think the O3 Air unit's got like a 6 millisecond or something like that readout, which is kind of slow for the sensor of its size, but it's good enough for government work. The GoPro's is so fast it's not even worth bothering. It's almost a global shutter. A global shutter is when you have a sensor that reads all the pixels at once in a single go. So there's no rolling shutter type of blur or wobble or jello effect. Okay, so I got this set how I want. And instead of exporting it as a video, I'm going to export project file. So I don't need to include the gyro data. I don't need to include process gyro data. I just want to export the project file. Boom. Okay. And it's going to go right next to the original video file. Cool, cool, cool. Let me just go ahead and grab this same one here. Boop. And it should automatically reload the lens profile. All my settings stay the same. Cool. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Come down, export project file. And boom. Now I'm done with GyroFlow. Yep, we're gone. We're not going to do any encoding, okay? So, first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to take this little scratch clip that I got, pop it on my timeline. Go over to the color page immediately, scroll to where I can see. That looks pretty good, right? And then I'm just going to pull my white balance right off that. Let's bump the saturation just to make sure that it looks all right. It doesn't look quite right. Let me see the other side. We'll pull it from the white side. So I'll reset this node, pull my white balance, saturation. Okay, that looks better. Okay, so now I've got my white balance node here pulled, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to we're going to label this node white balance or WB, and then I'm going to grab a still. So if I go over to gallery now, I have a still, and I've got a bunch of power grades here already, so I'm going to go ahead and label this guy real quick. Change label. Hood rip. White balance. And I can just leave it there. I don't need to move it into power grades unless I know I'm going to use it for everything else. But unfortunately, the different time of day changes the white balance. So there's no one universal white balance for daytime. If you want to be precise. Hi, wife. Anyway, so yes, just keep that there, and I come back here. I can just go ahead and pull that off the timeline. We don't need that clip anymore. And now I'll take the first clip that we did here. I'll just go ahead and clip it to right where I take off, give or take. And notice we're still working with the base 8x7 file, so it goes through here. La 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 la. We'll just work with this one file right quick here. Okay, coming into land, boom, there. Okay, and I just drag that down on there. We might want to just get rid of the audio. When deleting stuff off your timeline, get into the habit of using backspace. Delete is a ripple delete, so it will take everything out. So if, in case of this audio, if I just deleted the audio, it would also delete the video. But if the video extended beyond that, it would take a chunk out of the video. So, yeah, now I just got my video, and I can come over here. Oh, wait. I want to be on the edit page first. So, in my favorites, I have Gyroflow under the warp category, under Open Effects. And I'm going to drag that onto my video. Now notice, I've already clipped the video. It doesn't matter that I clipped it. I could clip this video into 1,000 pieces, and one of those pieces would still sync up correctly. So now over here, I have Gyroflow. Now, we need to enable a feature in the settings to make this button work. So I'm going to go to the DaVinci Resolve menu to the left of File, go to Preferences, and then General, and External Scripting using Local. Usually, by default, it's set to none. You need to change it to local so that the script inside of the Gyroflow plugin will work, and it'll automatically load the project file for you. Otherwise, you can manually load the project file. It's not that big of a deal. So if I just hit load for current file, it loads it up. But Joe, it doesn't look any different. And that's because there's a bug. The first time you load it, you got to hit reload project, and boom, there we go. And guess what? This plays silky smooth just like it does in Gyroflow. Now, mind you, this is a machine I'm streaming 4K 60 HDR on, and it's still playing back smooth. So when I tell you it plays back smooth, it plays back smooth. Okay? Okay? Nodes! Nodes! That's right, Hexy. We love nodes, don't we? So now that we got it Gyroflowed, I can go over to the color page and grade as normal. Okay, so I'll close my... gonna take my hood rep still, drop that on there. Now I got my fancy white balance node already sorted out, and I can move on from there. So we'll do a quick, let's see. I usually like to start when I'm on the ground, just because I know what that looks like more. So we'll just do a quick 3 slider correction here. So I don't want to go above like 1.3, and then I'll tune the shadows to bring the overall exposure I want it to be. Maybe a little more. Okay. And then, so there are some DaVinci Resolve 19 things. So this is 19 Public Beta 1. There's some new features in DaVinci Resolve 19 that are really amazing. I would normally use those features right now. I'm trying to do it the old way and trying to remember how the hell I did it in 18. Instead of like, I mean, I know how I would do it. I'd do a split grade. I'd track the sky, but we don't have time for that. So yeah, we did a basic exposure and contrast. So we can label that. And then this guy, we'll do some saturation, but we're going to do HSV saturation. So I'm going to go to color space and I'm going to change it to HSV. And now we're, instead of RGB, we're using hue saturation, and I can't remember what the hell V stands for. Basically, it's brightness, but on channels, we're going to turn the H and the V off. No worries, dude. Good to see you. Thanks for the videos. Thanks for hanging out, man. I appreciate it. All right, so I got those channels turned off. So now we're only playing with the S channel. We want to increase saturation. So instead of increasing saturation with this slider here, we're going to increase the gain. And what this is going to do is it's going to increase the saturation without changing the luminance or the hue of any of the colors. And we can get pretty aggressive with this before it starts falling apart, thanks to 10-bit. Okay, now we can just kind of take a look at it, play it through a little bit. Not teabag. All right, a little bright in the sky. The blue is a little bit bright, but I've got a fix for that. All right, so we'll go to where blue is most brightest. And I'm going to create a new node. So we did saturation here. The HSV sat. Max power. Thanks for coming in, man. Yep, these all remain archived. You can go back and watch them anytime. I never take them down. I don't put them behind a paywall or any shit like that. So, yeah, hopefully you can get some out of it. So let's see. We did our sat. Now we want to take the luminance on the sky down a little bit. So I'm going to use my selection tool here and turn on my highlight, mask highlight, so I can see, give or take. And you see the blockiness up here? This is where we're running into the limitation of the 10-bit color. We're at the absolute extreme of those hues. So now we're getting banding, pixelation, compression artifacts up here. But we can fix that pretty easily by going to the denoise tab, and we're going to add 2 frames temporal noise reduction. I'm going to do 2 frames better, leave it as large, and then we're going to take our Luma and we're just barely going to turn that up. Doesn't seem to be... Oh, it's because I've got this turned on. Yeah, so that definitely softens out those blocks up in the sky. But you don't see the effects of that while the highlight mask highlight's turned on. So let's scroll through here a little bit. I'm just going to disable this for speed. So I'm going to make sure we're getting most of the sky. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We can do some mask finesse on here, so we'll pre-filter and then we'll denoise. Yeah, we'll denoise, post-filter. So we're turning on all the filtering for tits and pickles. Looks funky right now, but it will make a big difference. So I'll turn that off, and I'm going to go to my curves. We're going to go hue versus luminance. You can see where the big spike of blue is here on the histogram. I'm just going to come up here and click, and that will set up my little dots here, and I can just pull the luminance down on that. I want to kick the left side here all the way out to green. Because the tighter those two are, the tighter our color selection is, the more gradation we're going to get. And the kind of shittier it's going to look. See, it's already getting like really pushed. So it looks like ass. Alright, fuck it. You know what? We're not doing it this way. Alright, so instead of using the selection thingy majigger, there it is. God damn. I am just going to use the color slicer, which is a new feature in DaVinci Resolve 19 that allows you to add, so there's my blues, and I can turn on my highlight so I can see that permanently. I'll find a good center spot for that. Out there, turn that off, and then I'm just going to increase density. There we go, a little bit of saturation. We'll take the saturation down, density up, and that makes it a little bit more deep, I guess, if that's such a thing. So we can actually turn that saturation back up. There we go. So I didn't have to use any selection. Try to fly for now. All right, take it easy, Brett. Thanks for hanging out, man. Okay, love you. Bye. So this little fun thing right here. See if I can adjust for that. No, because it wants to think that's a function of the density. It's gonna grab my upper highlights in the green and the red and the white. Super annoying. Anyway, basic idea, right? Basic idea. We can leave that one alone. But I got a basic color correction on here, basic grade, I guess, if you will. I'm really trying to do this quickly and not overcomplicate it because we have been going for almost 2 hours here. And I know a lot of you guys want to do something else with your eating. So, yeah. Just my basic workflow with the Hero 12. And remember, it was GP log, and noticed I didn't use any LUTs. I used what I call my 3 slider correction, which consists of, if I come back here, I turn these nodes off. First thing I want to do is I set my white balance, right? That's what I did with that scratch clip. And first thing I would do is turn my pivot all the way to 1. And I usually start with shadows at 100, and then I'll contrast to taste. All right, pretty simple stuff. And it doesn't look terrible as is. Now, when you increase contrast, it naturally increases saturation, so I did get a little saturation boost out of it. But this works for pretty much any kind of footage, and it's a little bit dark there, so I actually want to kind of pull back on that to make sure I don't lose my deepest dark shadows. And if it ends up being a little bit bright, then you can pull down on the shadows. Control the brightness with the shadows, right? Control your shadows with the contrast. But this works for any kind of footage. It works for log footage, works for regular Rec 709 that comes off your phone, works for HDR footage. It works for pretty much everything. It is such a bullshit cheat. And any other colors, they would freak out right now if they saw what I just taught you guys. Just cranking contrast and shadows until it looks the way you want. But I mean, it's so easy, right? And it's tunable. It works for any kind of footage. You can tune it for anything. If you already have a really aggressive log profile, you can tune it for that. If you don't have a log profile, if you have something that's already contrasty, you can adjust it for that as well. And it doesn't destroy the highlights, and if you're gentle with it, it won't destroy your shadows, and you get almost kind of an HDR effect, so your reflections come out, your colors become saturated. You get a lot of mid-tone detail without having to use a mid-tone detail slider. So you notice I don't have any blooming up here. Remember when I was talking about blooming on Bart's video? If I crank this up, we'll start getting blooming around the trees, but we do get a lot more detail. We also get a lot more noise. So it's a matter of preference, right? I wouldn't run mid-tone detail at 100. I might do like 30 or 40, but you still get some blooming. So I'm going to try to mitigate that as much as possible, just to squeeze a little bit of extra detail out of there. And then it's looking kind of bright in the mid-tones, so I'm going to pull the shadows down. I pull back in the contrast. And then if I'm super lazy, we can just delete these guys. Oh, it's not going to do it while I'm playing. Not helpful. Delete these guys. And I'll just crank saturation here to 65. And everyone's going to be happy. So this is good enough. This is good enough, right? This isn't going to get you a job in Hollywood, but it's going to look pretty good on the internets. So, and that's kind of what we're shooting for, right? We're trying to do the most that we can with the least amount of work, without using LUTs. So if you want to stylize this, that's a totally different thing. We're just doing a basic correction to get out of the log profile and into what is more traditionally known as, you know, your basic, it's not linear, but it's gamma 2.4. That's it, man. That's it. That's how it works. That's all there is to it. Using the JavaFlow plugin, though, allows you to maintain your signal integrity because you don't end up with stretched out diamond-shaped pixels that are rasterized. So you don't have to resample those pixels in a higher resolution to maintain the detail. Resolve will do it for you. which means much faster workflow and a lot less storage requirement because you don't have to encode your stabilized footage anymore. You can do it right inside of Resolve. Super cool stuff. Super stable. There are some situations where you wouldn't, if you're going to do any kind of speed ramping. Gyroflow does work with speed ramping, but it has a weird effect because of the way the frames are keyframed. So if you're going to do any kind of speed ramping, you're going to want to do it the classic way, exporting out a fresh video from Gyroflow and, you know, going from there. So that's all she wrote, kids. I encourage you to go and play with the GoPro Labs firmware. You can come back into the chat, and I will try to post this stuff in the description as well, so you can get back to it if you want to see that stuff. Otherwise, there's tons of documentation. There is a community forum on the GoPro Labs. I think GitHub? I don't know. There are people out there, other people who are messing with this, so you can get help if you get stuck. Otherwise, just hit me up in the Discord. Ask me some questions, and I will help you as soon as I can. So, yeah, with that, I'm about to dock this this dog and pony show here. I gotta feed the wifey before she gnaws my legs off. Or maybe before I gnaw her legs off. I don't know. I'm pretty hungry myself. So, yeah, guys, really appreciate you hanging out with me. I hope you learned something. It's a little bit discombobulated, but we'll get there, right? Yeah, so thanks for stopping in. Thanks for spending the 2 hours with me. Hit me up in the Discord. You got questions? Okay. I love you. Okay, bye. Okay, bye.